People had very little time.
I grabbed my insurance papers, my dog food, and I ran.
I'm devastated, my friends, my neighbors. I'm devastated for everyone.
I didn't know that would go past the creek. I thought she probably would have gone on that side of the creek.
It's okay, come on. Hi, kitty.
I'm Lilia Luciano.
And I'm Michael Anthony Adams.
For the past month or so, we've been covering nothing but fires. We are standing in Santa Rosa in one of the most devastated areas where almost half a mile behind us, all you see is ashes. Torn down, devastated buildings, houses.
I mean, there's so many neighborhoods where this scene plays out time and time again, and then you know, you drive a little farther and a house,
everything is intact.
Everything's fine. Yeah, it's like nothing ever happened.
And in areas like this, some people were very lucky to, after the evacuations, come back home, and other people, like the owners of this house where we are, come back and find that they have absolutely nothing to start off with.
Right, these roadblocks are still up. It feels like a war zone, it really does. I mean, to see the National Guard in their Humvees in full uniform, it's scary. It still gives this foreboding presence that
it's not okay. It's not okay yet. So for the next half hour, we're going to take you on a tour of everything from the source of the fire, the investigations that are taking place, the devastation, of course, the first responders, and where do we build from here. So let's start with this tour of what is left. There's still helicopters.
I know, and that creates that whole atmosphere of it being like a war zone. I still can't get over that. I mean, you hear the helicopters flying low overhead, and then you see this.
One of the things that a few people I've talked to have said is, I regret what I took with me. I keep thinking of the things that I didn't bring, but I had no mind to it, and think about it, and there's no power. So people really just grab whatever they have.
I think one of the coolest stories, though, that I heard was from a sheriff's deputy whose house burnt down. And every Wednesday, him and his buddies would come over to his house and play poker at this table. Well, the table was gone. He was sitting there looking at that spot, and he said, you know what, we're still going to come back every week until my house is built and put the poker table up and play poker right here amongst the rubble, because we're not going to let this beat us. But even over here, you know, you see people that are coming back and just looking for any piece of their life that they had left behind.
We're walking through one of the hardest hit neighborhoods in Santa Rosa. I've never been in a war zone, but this is pretty much what I imagine it would look like. Basically, everything around us has been reduced to piles of rubble.
There really isn't a whole lot left here, and this might be a good point to talk about how we actually got here. It all started October 8th. The first fire was reported between Calistoga and Santa Rosa. That fire would be known as the Tubbs Fire. By the end of the day, there would be 3 more fires to start, one in Napa County, one in Sonoma, and another in Yuba. The following day, day 2, this is when the first fire-related death is reported. Many more would follow after that. By day 3, smoke filled the air. You could smell smoke as far as San Joaquin Valley, Sacramento, and into the Bay Area. On day 4, CAL FIRE reaches an airstrike record. More than 750,000 gallons of fire retardant is dropped. That's the most to be dropped in one short span of time. October 13th, Friday. This is when FEMA lands at Travis Air Force Base and helps the 100,000 fire evacuees. That following weekend, Governor Brown comes to Santa Rosa and announces that the White House has approved federal funding for fire victims. That brings us up to today. More than 40 people have died because of this fire, making it one of the most deadly fires in California history.
Now you've seen the whole timeline, and you've seen just how these fires spread through wine country. But let's go back to the very first night. I'm at 1047 Maverick Court, and this address is important. Just minutes after emergency dispatchers reported a vegetation fire, they sent crews here for an electrical investigation.
Rankin
electrical investigation 1047 Maverick. Hazardous condition. Possible transformer explosion. Fulton Road at Old Redwood Highway.
We have multiple fires in LNU at this point. I need them for the state mission.
Dispatch reports of downed power lines and blown transformers have put PG&E in the spotlight. Shares of the publicly traded company started falling 4 days after the fires began. CAL FIRE's investigation into the cause of the fires is ongoing, but the first lawsuit against PG&E has already been filed by 2 Santa Rosa residents, claiming PG&E was negligent and failed to properly maintain, repair, and inspect the subject lines, equipment, and adjacent vegetation. Attorney Steve Campora, who represents other victims, says PG&E should expect many more suits to be filed.
They don't put enough effort into on-the-ground people's safety, and it results in things where people are killed in horrible ways.
State Senator Jerry Hill is calling for a hearing on PG&E's preventative measures. If the utility's equipment is determined to have caused fires, Hill says he will call for the utility to be dissolved.
If we see that, then to me PG&E has crossed the line. And that line means they should not be allowed to do business any longer in California.
This is one of the casualties of the Butte fire.
PG&E is still paying claims related to the 2015 Butte fire. 2 people were killed and nearly 550 homes were destroyed after a PG&E electrical line set a pine tree on fire. In a July filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the utility says it expects to lose at least $750 million due to the Butte fire. If its losses are not covered by insurance, PG&E says it might ask the California Public Utilities Commission to have customers pay the bill.
I mean, it's absurd that PG&E could expect the ratepayers to pay for their negligence. It's outrageous.
A California Public Utilities Commission investigation into PG&E's safety culture published in May found that PG&E still had not developed a comprehensive safety strategy. The commission concluded that PG&E's safety efforts fall short of the expectations of the commission, community leaders, and ratepayers.
That I know of, before these fires in Sonoma, before the fires in the last 2 weeks, PG&E has been responsible for the deaths of 11 people. There's not another entity that I'm aware of in the state that could be responsible for the deaths of 11 people and not have people looking at them very critically about whether or not they can do what they need to do.
PG&E wouldn't comment directly on the lawsuit that was filed, but said in a statement that it will comply with the California Public Utility Commission's request to preserve all data and documentation related to the fires and will support reviews by the appropriate regulatory agencies. Again, investigators still don't know the exact cause of these fires, and they may not know for months. But for the folks affected by the fires, like the people that lived here, the rebuilding process may take years. And if PG&E equipment is determined to be the cause behind these fires, this story is just getting started.
Sitting in front of the Rincon Valley Fire Department, and this is one of hundreds of fire departments all across the country, from Guam all the way as far as Canada and Mexico, who came to help battle these California wildfires. Now, just down the street is the Mark West neighborhood, and there were firefighters who had their homes in there burning while they were out battling fires in front of other people's homes. Since the start of what CAL FIRE is now calling the October Fire Siege, 21 major wildfires burned over 245,000 acres, and 11,000 firefighters battled the destructive flames that at one time forced 100,000 to evacuate. The fires destroyed an estimated 8,700 structures and took the lives of 42 people. To help supplement the search and rescue efforts in the aftermath, people like Al Wolf took on a new job and uncovered some disturbing realities.
You can't run 5 miles not in fire like this.
Al Wolf is doing a different job today than the one he's done for the last 25 years, one that had him searching and rescuing reptiles. But the massive fires burning in Sonoma and Napa counties have changed all that, at least for now.
Yesterday we found human remains, and you report it, it gets put on, but it's not on the official toll yet, and it won't be. But every day you'll hear a couple, 2, 3 more. Unfortunately, here somebody's probably lost their life, and maybe both the people.
But Wolf didn't come to this house specifically looking for bodies.
Being one of the rescues, we look for people's pets. We get a call to go to each house to look to see possibly if there's a pet left. And in this case, this is the people never showed up after they were going back to get their horses. You know, what I'm looking at here is not good. You know, so now we'll go down to the horse barn that used to be a barn. See, and this is the hardest thing for people to understand right here. Repeated over and over again. You know, you love horses. Man, these horses had a name. They had feelings. They were somebody's pets. And here I have to be so careful in case we do find people. See, this is the manure pile. It's going to burn for a long time. It's not up to me to go through people's personal stuff, but personal? Wow. I don't know if anybody can ever understand how horrible this is.
I came across a group of very unique firefighters. That group is not only made up entirely of women, they're hiking for hours with 50 pounds on their backs. They're camping out in the woods. They're risking their lives at the very front line of the fire. And they're doing it for near to nothing, for just $1 an hour. Some consider that slave labor. I talked to one of them to understand how they made it out of a detention facility like this one and up to the front lines of the fire. And why do they do it? How long have you guys been here?
We actually got here last night. We were driving all night.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this almost a year.
A year?
Yeah.
So what's the training like?
The training is, well, we go through a regular prison, and that is, I want to say, a couple months of training. You have to pass some certain physical fitness training, and then you go to school basically for a little while, all day school, and you learn about what it means to actually construct a fire.
What they just explained is they're working to create natural barriers and basically remove anything that's flammable from the areas where the fire might be coming in. Apparently the fire is on the other side of the hill. It's going to come, or it might come, over the hill, and then they're creating these like lines where it's just dirt, and as long as there's no brushes or wood or anything that can light up on fire, then that creates some kind of a protective barrier. You are far and beyond my new girl hero, so thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for inspiring me.
You're welcome.
Certainly celebrate you. We're in the Fountain Grove neighborhood in Santa Rosa. We just met Judy Morris, who lived in this house. She just came for the first time, and the only thing she wanted to find was her safe box. Can you tell me what's in the safe that you were looking for?
My wedding rings from my husband that died 4 years ago. Some things from my mother that died June 29th. And I love this house. I bought it a year ago. 3,500 square feet. Best neighbors in the world, beautiful area. Well, it is what it is. You can cry or you can make the best of life. I got out at either 1:30 or 2 Monday night, and they were driving up and they kept screaming, "Get out, get out, get out," and I kept thinking, well, give me a little while. Get out, get out. And the electricity was off, so you couldn't see to grab anything.
What did you take?
My dog, my 2-pound Yorkie, and some dog food in my purse. And this is what's left. This was a 3,500 square foot house. It was so beautiful. So beautiful. You could see the golf course upstairs and everything.
Judy said her one regret was to take the dog food over the memories in the safe box. She looked through and through the rubble, but everything was unrecognizable.
Jerry, can you believe we found it?
And finally, between her boyfriend and her neighbor, they found it.
And I can't tell you guys how important this is to me. My husband died 4 years ago, and he was a highway patrolman, and this safe was in my master closet, and it had my wedding rings and my husband's badge, and you know, they probably melted, but you know, I have them, and my kids, really, it was very important. So yeah, I'm overwhelmed. Really lucky. So yeah, and my mailbox made it. I looked to see if I had any mail. So, but you have to, you know, life goes on.
Today we're seeing many people around here in Santa Rosa coming back for the first time to their homes, just like Judy, to find that they've lost absolutely everything. In Judy's case, she says that her insurance has been great. It will cover the rebuilding of her home. That's not the case with everyone. And even if your insurance does cover your home, where do you go in the meantime? Right now, this area, Santa Rosa, has lost 5% of its housing supply. And this is a place where housing costs are high, where building is low, and rents are very expensive. I went to the Springs area where the director of La Luz Center, Juan Hernandez, explained to me how losing your house to the fire is not the only way that people could be losing their homes. Tell me what the housing crisis looks like here, and how do you think that's going to be aggravated now?
Yes, so what you have is a lot of, it's a very beautiful area. People don't want to build up. It's hard to build down. So we're really kind of isolated geographically. And so that exacerbates the issue. The second thing is there's so many regulations.
How does a fire make it worse?
What ends up happening is that now what happened, the fires really affected people up in the hills. So now people who may be able to afford these houses up in the hills, now they need somewhere to stay too. Now those people who have lost their homes are competing with the vineyard worker, the hospitality worker, who's also possibly lost their job. So now you got people at the higher income bracket and at the lower income bracket having the same effect of the fires, and they're both competing for that same 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment.
What's your worst fear?
So our worst fear is that they're probably going to get behind on the rent, and right before the fires happen, landlords have been anxious to try to get some of these renters out. I was talking to somebody that came in, they paid $2,400 of rent, and they both make minimum wage. That person could turn around and actually fix up that place and rent it out for $3,100, $3,200. So the fear is that now there's an excuse for people not to be able to pay their rent because
to speed up gentrification.
As devastating as these fires were, most wineries are still open for business. Now, a lot of the grape harvest was picked earlier in the season, and the grapes that were left on the vine did sustain a little bit of smoke damage. But again, owners want you to know that they're ready to serve you and open for business.
I woke up at 1:30 in the morning last Sunday and found out that our destination was on fire.
It was literally move people from out of the front of the path of this fire. Fighting the fire at that time was not going to be possible just due to the intensity.
The tourism industry was affected. We have lost some hotel rooms. There have been cancellations with the restaurants and our attractions, but we're also seeing a lot of brand loyalty. We did have a few hotels that sustained damage. None burned to the ground, which is good. So they will rebuild and they will start accepting guests. We didn't have one winery that burned to the ground. Some have been scorched. Some of the vineyards have been scorched. Outbuildings have been scorched, but all the wineries and vineyards had made it through the fire. That's a positive message we definitely want to share.
So we're at the home of Russ Masana. He owns Bastoni Vineyards, and fortunately, Russ's house made it. It's great news. Unfortunately, all of his grapes are ruined from smoke damage. So when you were driving out,
I drove that way.
You drove this way, and so because you couldn't go out.
I couldn't go. It was all covered.
Flames everywhere.
Yeah, it was covered in fire.
Russ was telling us that every farmer goes through something like this. There's 3 years of great crop and 1 year of disaster, and so this is obviously his disaster.
This year's crop is a total loss because we were going to pick the day after the fire.
Oh, wow.
So what happens to...
Taste it. They're not bad at all. I mean, they're not bad, but they've got smoke.
So they're a little smoky. Kind of a nice flavor. Oh, wow, they're really good. I think they're still pretty good.
But it will have what's called smoke taint.
Okay.
And they have to filter out the smoke flavor. And when you filter out the smoke flavor, they remove the flavor of the fruit as well, and it makes mediocre wine.
I need to know that Sonoma's open for business, and Wine Country is opening for business. We're not fully 100% open, but we're welcoming guests. The hotels, we sat in a room with the hotels today, they said we want to fill our hotel rooms. The restaurants said we need butts and seats, so we need to figure out a way to welcome people back and send a strong message that Sonoma is a safe destination. It's still a scenic and beautiful destination, and when you come to Sonoma Valley, you will experience the true taste of California.
So when the evacuations were issued, many people just had minutes to leave their homes, and that put pet owners and livestock owners in a tough spot. Some people were able to rescue their animals, while others had to leave them behind. As fire crews fought flames from the air, it took a community to save livestock on the ground.
We just loaded 2 horses and a pony.
In Grass Valley, evacuating meant more than just getting people to safety.
Majority of them is horses. We have llamas, we have chickens.
Anyone with a horse trailer helped neighbors bring livestock to the Nevada County Fairgrounds. About an hour west of Nevada County, fire had already destroyed Laura Ringberger's home in Sonoma County.
Right there.
She's been desperately trying to get back to her home since she left on Sunday.
Kitty!
She's looking for the family cat.
I didn't know that would go past the creek. I thought she probably would have gone on that side of the creek.
Laura and several of her neighbors on Soda Canyon Road lost everything.
All my son wanted was his gold St. Christopher chain.
Nothing but ash and remnants of old kitchenware remain.
Yeah, kitty, 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 treat, treat, treat.
The focus now turns to the cat.
I didn't know where the fire went. Kitty!
Finally, a happy sight.
It's okay, come on. Hi, kitty.
Fire may have left a scar on the land that these animals call home, but under the ash, there's still hope.
Yes, it's okay.
I don't know about you, Michael, but in about 12 years that I've been doing this for a living, I have never seen anything like what we've seen in these past weeks.
Neither have I. I mean, driving through, like we talked about earlier, I mean, it just looks like a war zone. The one thing I've noticed, though, is people are hopeful they're ready to rebuild.
And it's a very divided time. It seems like conversations that we're having nationally, locally, seem to divide us. But I think, unfortunately, nothing like a tragedy of this caliber, of this nature, can bring people together and sit down and start having conversations that need to be had, from housing to insurance to who caused this and how can we prevent it from happening again.
And we know you'll be a big part of rebuilding Northern California, so we thank you for joining us. This has been Michael Anthony Adams.
Lilia Luciano. Join us again next time.